And a good Tuesday morning to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. First things first, boy, was yesterday hot. We'll talk about some of the specific temperatures that we did reach, including some of those heat index values. But first things first, we like to start out this extended forecast each and every day, kind of recapping the day before's rainfall totals. And we saw our fair share of some scattered showers and even a couple of isolated storms. Taking a look at some of the higher rainfall totals that we saw in Central Georgia yesterday. Just east of I-75 down in Crisp County was the highest total that we could find, around 3 inches of rain just to the southeast of Cordele. About 1.5 inches of rain just to the south of I-16, south of downtown Dublin. 2.5 inches right here on the Four Corners area of Wilkinson, Twiggs, Bleckley, and Lawrence counties, right around the I-16 corridor. Once again, up here in Macon, downtown Macon only tallying about 1/10 of an inch of rain. So more likely than not, if you saw anything in the way of rain yesterday, it only equated to a couple of 1/10 of inches of rain. Up in northern Taylor County, nearly 3 inches of rain. Right up here on the county lines of Pike County, Lamar County, and Upson County, you can see totals just over 2 inches, just over 1 inch north of Gray, and just shy of 2 inches down in southwest Putnam County, along with just shy of 1 inch in northern Monroe County. That's getting close to the Juliet area, kind of in northeast Monroe County. But not a lot of rain to be found far and wide. You can see areas like Warner Robins and Perry actually completely dodged the rain as of yesterday, and they were not alone. Portions of Wilkinson County, Lawrence County, some areas of Johnson and Washington counties. And if you did see any rain, you probably saw this light blue shade, which is only going to equate to about a trace of rain or maybe just 1/10 of an inch like you see here in Macon. So we do have some better rain chances in the forecast for your Tuesday afternoon. We are going to be back around average starting tomorrow. So we are going to see a steady cool down back to average, which will be a welcome sight. Of course, it's still going to be hot, but not near in the range as hot as yesterday was. Better rain chances all week, and then as we go into the weekend, some cooler temperatures. I know that is what all of you are looking forward to because it was definitely unbearably hot yesterday, and you're probably asking yourself, okay, it's been hot for a while. Do we have any relief in sight? And we do, but it's going to come with a bit of a catch. So we'll talk about that coming up on the latter half of this extended forecast. Mostly sunny skies. That has been the story all morning long here in Central Georgia. We actually had some showers and thunderstorms that lingered into the overnight hours, even a thunderstorm that was still going. I think it did pop up a special weather statement even around 2 or 3 a.m. That was that one that equated to about 3 inches of rain down in Crisp County. But those were very quick to fizzle out and lose their steam. And behind that, the cloud cover did clear out. So now we see lots and lots of blue sky all across Central Georgia. It's farther over to the west and the southwest where our cloud cover is currently present. And you can kind of see that right now on the bottom left of your screen over in Warner Robins. You look off to the left right here, just along the horizon. That's where some of the higher level clouds are still lingering in the forecast. But overall, it is a pleasant image to walk out the door to. And we know what happens when we have mostly sunny skies. Those temperatures continue to climb, and they will not stop unless anything blocks them in the way of cloud cover or in the way of some rain. So let's take a look at your current temperatures. Mid to upper 80s mainly across Central Georgia. We were seeing some 90s this time yesterday, so kind of going ahead and giving you an indication that today is going to be a little bit lower on that high temperature scale. At the lowest, I think we see 82 over here in Thomaston and Upson County, and at the warmest, I spot at 89 in downtown Dublin, but not seeing any numbers that are matching that or are above the 89-degree mark. Compared to the rest of the United States, down here in the south and the southeast, definitely seeing 90s in some of our neighboring cities. 90 in Panama City, 91 in Jacksonville, along with the 91 in Jackson. So Jacksonville and Jackson, Mississippi. That's kind of funny right there. Jackson, Jacksonville. You get what I'm saying? That's where we see those 91s on the current temperatures map. But most of the deep southeast is still hovering in this very hot environment, and we are going to continue to see some heat alerts once again this afternoon. Dew point temperatures, upper 70s in many areas. Oh my goodness, we see some 82-degree dew points in Americus, Unadilla, and Cordele. Those are typically our areas that are running dew point temperatures of around 80 degrees. Most of east central Georgia likes to stay nestled in the upper 70s. but it is very, very humid outside for yet another day. And you can see the humidity levels are going to be virtually the same across not only the state of Georgia, but many of our neighboring states. It's once you get up into the Appalachian Mountains, the North Georgia mountains, western North Carolina, that's where some of the slightly drier air is. But of course, we're not looking at any of that to make its presence known in the foreseeable future. So we do have a couple of triple-digit heat indices already. Feels like 105 in Sandersville, 104 in downtown Dublin, along with a 104 in Cordele, 105 in Unadilla, feels like 100 in Vidalia. And if you don't feel like the triple digits, you feel like the 90s. Even Thomaston getting on board with the 90-degree parade, and feels like 94 degrees over in Upson County. That's typically the value that we see is running one of the cooler temperatures, but cool is a very relative term this time of year as we roll into the end of the month of July. Now let's take a look at your winds and your wind gusts. Not quite as breezy as we were this time yesterday, mainly some calm winds, but a select few areas have a sustained breeze of about 5 to 7 miles per hour. Winds aren't going to really be a factor besides a couple of isolated spots, and that's going to be more into the evening hours when we have the potential for some thunderstorms. But we did have some rain yesterday. It was just very late to get going. So before that rain did come over the downtown Macon area, a high temperature of 102 yesterday. So not only was it the first 100-degree day that we've seen so far this calendar year, but it also broke this record of 101 back in 1952. So that's a 73-year record. And you can see that 102, that's about 8 degrees above average where we should be. And that makes sense. You can see that a morning low temperature was also a good amount of degrees above average at 76 compared to 72 where we should be this time of year. So it doesn't quite look like the rain made it down to South Bibb County where Middle Georgia Regional Airport is. Surprise, surprise. So that your departure of rain continues to tick down, now really flirting with just over an inch where we should be this time of year. Sunrise yesterday was at 6:46 and your sunset was at 8:36 yesterday evening. So let's talk about not only that 102-degree mark. Hitting it yesterday was our first 100-degree day. That was the big thing that we were talking about yesterday. But it did break a record, and in fact, it is the warmest temperature that we have seen in almost 400 days in the Macon area. Last time we hit 102, June 26 of 2024, so about a year and a month ago, we did match that 102-degree mark. But that has been quite some time ago, giving you an idea that the heat yesterday was not heat that we typically see on a summertime day. It was definitely taking it above and beyond. And right now, your high temperature for today is 97 degrees. And 97, it obviously is above average, and we know the humidity is going to make that number feel even warmer. We just saw that in real time with the feels like temperatures graphic. But compared to the 100 I had on the today graphic yesterday, this 97 does actually look a little bit pleasant. So it's going to be a hot start to the day, but we do have some better rain chances surrounding the early afternoon time frame. So the earlier that rain pops up, it's going to not allow those temperatures to warm up as much as they could, and hopefully we will continue to see that rain get widespread as we go throughout the next couple of hours and into the early afternoon hours as well. So heat index today, this is for Macon specifically, topping out with feels like numbers that are very similar to yesterday. I think we got up to 109, 110 on this heat index today graphic, but you can see that steady downtick. Obviously, it's probably not going to feel like much relief, but at least it will be slightly more bearable as we head into the late afternoon and evening window, and not holding on to those triple-digit feels like temperatures until 9 p.m. that this graphic did show yesterday. It looks like we'll be somewhere around 91 degrees by the time we reach the 9 p.m. hour, right there past sunset. So let's talk about your heat alerts for today. No changes in terms of what counties are under which specific heat warning. We do still have this extreme heat warning over here along the Ocmulgee and areas to the east of it. So that's going to be this hot pink shade that you see right here. That does encompass areas like Macon, Milledgeville, down to Eastman, Dublin, Sandersville, Wrightsville. And then to the west of the Ocmulgee River, you will still see those same counties that yesterday they were under the heat advisory. They are still under a heat advisory for feels like numbers just slightly below the threshold of what areas are forecasted in the extreme heat warning. So it feels like temperatures up to 112 once again possible, and a couple of isolated areas, especially if you dodge the early afternoon rain, have the potential to see those numbers climb even higher. This will go all the way until 8 p.m. later tonight, and then we will be taken out of this. But I do suspect that over the next couple of days, we will continue to see heat advisories at least issued here in central Georgia. But thankfully, at least getting this out of here, the extreme heat warning. Like I said, this is something we have not seen in nearly 2 years in central Georgia. So hopefully we can get this out of here, and heat advisory is kind of this normal criteria that we do see on a very hot day in the summertime months. But also, it is going to continue with this very hot stretch that we've had. So the relief that we have in terms of the second half of your weekend into the beginning of next week is going to be a very welcome sight, no matter what kind of forecast that it does bring. Here's your satellite and radar picture. Nothing getting going so far in the way of some rain. It will probably be around lunchtime, just past lunchtime, before we see that picture get a little more active. Let's take it through Future View and see what it has to say about it. This is a new model run, so I'm looking at this in real time with all of you right now. A couple of scattered showers maybe trying to bubble up in central Georgia by about 1 p.m. Still continuing to try to be more widely scattered as we go into the late afternoon window. And then as we go into 6 p.m., still not necessarily seeing the best coverage of rain. So Future View is kind of backed off very steadily in terms of those rain chances popping up a little bit earlier. But yesterday we saw some coverage of rain and especially some storms that wasn't necessarily going along with what the graph model was saying. So I do believe we'll see more coverage of some scattered showers than what Future View is hinting at, because what's stopping them right now? It is very hot. It is very humid. It is a perfect conducive atmosphere for some rain to continue to get going. And as our upper level pattern is kind of falling apart, that's where we're really looking at the convective nature of these to continue to be the driving force. So that's going to continue to contribute to that rising motion, which can lead to the formation of higher cloud tops and even some pockets of heavier rain. But you can see that there's the possibility of some isolated storms all around central Georgia by about the 6 p.m. hour. Who's to say that we go into the afternoon hours? Future View has a new model resolution, and a couple of those isolated storms are popping up over central Georgia. But what the consensus has been all morning long, continuing to see maybe a bit of a sea breeze driving some of those thunderstorm chances into the evening hours tonight. This is 10 p.m., so obviously not a lot left to work with here at this time frame. But depending on how hot our temperatures get, then of course they're going to be a little bit slower to cool down, and we can see some of that rain linger into the overnight hours, just like we did see last night. So right now this timestamp is at midnight. A lot of rain has fizzled out and is virtually dissipated. And then we go into hopefully a clear start to tomorrow morning. If we have something to talk about in the form of some rain that's welcoming you out the door, then of course we'll be sure to mention it on the morning show tomorrow. But it does look like we're just left with some residual cloud cover by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And just like today, it looks like rain gets going once again just past lunchtime tomorrow around 1 or 2 o'clock. A couple of storms are going to start to progress the later in the afternoon that you go, so that's when your temperatures are going to continue to get a little bit warmer and a little bit warmer hour by hour until we get to about that 4, 5, and 6 o'clock window, which is typically our warmest time of the afternoon this time of year. A couple of scattered storms are still going to be possible tomorrow, and then we go into the evening hours still holding on to that rain before it either moves out of the picture or it does dissipate in light of some of those cooler temperatures during the overnight hours. But now let's see how Thursday looks, because Thursday doesn't necessarily look like the best rain chance. And the good news is your temperatures are going to continue to drop just a little bit. But Thursday afternoon, it does look like anything in the way of rain is scattered out a lot more. So a greater chance of missing that rain. And we always say that hit or miss shower, that hit or miss storm. That's going to mean that you have a good chance of seeing some rain, but a greater likelihood of possibly missing it. And whatever does pop up in the way of rain is going to be very localized, meaning one end of the county could see some rain and you may be stuck with just some partly cloudy skies and some dry weather on the other end of the county. But also want to talk about some of the storms, because we did see some that fired up yesterday that were relatively strong in nature. Anything that you see in the way of a storm, obviously it's kind of a supercharged atmosphere in terms of how hot it is, how humid it is. You definitely can't rule out a stray severe thunderstorm warning or even just a strong thunderstorm that packs a punch with some gusty winds that can do some damage to any loose items that are outside, or along with a hail core, maybe popping up some pea-sized, some quarter-sized hail at the very largest in the core of where that heaviest rainfall is. We got some reports of some hail down in Lawrence County yesterday and some reports of some damage with some properties down in Telfair County. So not to take away from the fact that these summertime storms can still pack a punch. They're just in very localized areas as opposed to having widespread impacts across many areas of central Georgia. Future view goes all the way out to 3 a.m. We'll pick it up with the long range models in just a little bit. But let's talk about this. I have weekend outlook on here, and I don't know how it's taken me all morning until now to realize I have weekend outlined on this. But this is for your next 3 days. You see the day stamps, Tuesday, Wednesday, then on into Thursday. But 97 for a high temperature on Tuesday, 60% chance of seeing a shower or a storm. That may be overshooting it, but the kind of pattern that I've seen as of recently is we're typically seeing better coverage of rain than what the models, specifically Future View, is hinting at. So I went a little bit above, say, what the coverage of rain had on the model runs for today. 40% chance of a shower or storm as we go into Wednesday, high temperature of 94 degrees, and then a high temperature of 95 on Thursday, maybe just a little bit warmer, barely warmer. It's virtually going to feel the same each and every day, but probably a little more bearable for your Wednesday and Thursday. The humidity will still be running rampant. It's still going to influence your feels like temperatures, but maybe not quite climbing as high as what we will see today in light of the extreme heat warning and the heat advisory. I would bet that if we see any heat alerts Wednesday and Thursday, it's mainly going to be of heat advisory criteria. So once again, wanting to issue all those tips and tricks that we tell you about in order to keep your body cool, making sure you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your pets, your plants, all of your loved ones, and not putting them outside for an extended period of time. And if you do have to spend an extended amount of time outside, then make sure that you're hydrating frequently, wearing protective clothing, and of course trying to find areas of shade and anywhere indoors with some air conditioning to really just give your body a break from the blistering hot temperatures. But the common theme over the next 3 days will be decreasing rain chances. You see that 40% on Wednesday, that's a downtick from the 60% today. And then we go into the 30% chance of seeing some rain on Thursday. But then as we go into the beginning of your weekend, the very first day of August, which will be on Friday, we will see an uptick in those rain chances once again. But first, let's talk about the high temperatures. I promised you relief. Here's that relief. 88 degrees on Saturday for a high temperature. That's not the lowest temperature I have forecasted. So you're just going to have to stick around until I pop up the 7-day to see what I'm talking about maybe for Sunday and Monday. But 88 degrees is already well below average. That's a 7-degree drop from Friday into Saturday. So the second day of August does look like it's going to feel a lot better than the first day of August on Friday. But the theme is going to be near average or slightly above average for the next 4 days to close out the work week. And of course, the humidity is going to stick around. It is not going anywhere until maybe we go sometime into the weekend. We were seeing a really good drop off yesterday as we went from Saturday to Sunday. We even saw the point on Sunday. It was down here in the comfortable range. Well, it looks like the muggy meter has backed off that thinking. So we might see a slight downtick in the humidity, but I do believe increased cloud cover and increased rain chances are going to be the main reason why your temperatures stay somewhere in the 80s, at least for Saturday, and that could continue into Sunday. So the big thing that we will be focusing on and turning our focus to after, of course, this blistering hot weather to kick off the work week will be this approaching frontal boundary as we go into Friday evening. So I do believe that most of Friday afternoon we'll see temperatures warm up to around average, maybe slightly above average, before finally we go into the evening hours, and that's when we start to see more organized rain ahead of that frontal boundary. There's pretty good agreement right now amongst the Euro and the GFS models right here. The green and the blue shades are not necessarily directly over one another and overlapping one another all across this boundary, but there is a good consensus on widespread rain, not only in the state of Georgia, but going all the way back over into Texas, all the way up into the Carolinas, maybe portions of Virginia, Maryland, getting over into Delaware, so that DMV area. But then let's go all the way into Saturday. And it looks like that boundary doesn't push too much farther south. By the time we get into Saturday, maybe even morning into the afternoon hours, I think we'll start to see better coverage of rain each and every afternoon when temperatures are trying to warm up a little bit more. But that boundary looks to kind of park itself over the southeast corner of the United States. It's going to act as kind of a focal point for some lift, and that's going to continue to lead to widespread rain chances across the southeast as we go into Saturday. But take a look at this. It looks like almost the entire state of Georgia is in some form of a blue shade, a green shade, or even portions of South Georgia in these shades of yellow, in these shades of purple, or not purple, excuse me, the red and the pink. So good agreement that we'll probably see our fair share of thunderstorms, but this wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Of course, I know it's Saturday, you have outdoor plans, a lot of you trying to make the most out of those last couple days of summer break, but at this point, July has been very, very dry for some areas, including Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So we could definitely use the rain in a select few areas. And along with that, if we have all this cloud cover and all this rain in the forecast, it's not going to allow for much temperature fluctuation. We're going to hover a little bit closer to our morning lows as opposed to what we have seen recently with highs in the mid to upper 90s and of course the triple digits yesterday. And it still looks like a lot of this rain is hanging around in the picture into your Sunday afternoon and evening, and we continue that trend into Monday and all the way into Tuesday, but it does look like rain chances starting to scatter out a little bit more as we go into the beginning of next week. So yes, it may be a messy weekend on tap. I'm pretty confident that it will be, but it will make a world of a difference in those high temperatures that I'll show you just after this graphic. But this is something we will continue to keep an eye out on, your tropics outlook. This is as of the 8 a.m. update this morning, so we continue to get these updates about every 6 hours unless there is an actual named storm. We'll get those updates more frequently, but there is still no activity expected within the next 7 days here in the Atlantic Basin. Some of you may say it's been a bit of a quiet start to the hurricane season so far. We've only had 3 named storms. Well, if you kind of look at the impacts that those named storms have had, number one, none of them have reached hurricane criteria whatsoever, but the moisture associated with Tropical Storm Barry, the remnants of it, moved up into the hill country of Texas, and it was a big reason for all of that flooding that we did see. And then Tropical Storm Chantal moved onshore on areas of coastal South Carolina, moved up into central North Carolina, resulted in its fair share of flooding in Chapel Hill, Durham, Raleigh-Durham, those areas. So they definitely have had their fair share of impacts. When you look at it from an impact standpoint, these aren't even hurricanes, and they're already having some pretty catastrophic impacts across portions of Texas, portions of North Carolina. But yes, we've only had 3 named storms so far, but typically when we transition into the month of August, that's where we really start to see an uptick in tropical activity. That's when tropical storms, those potential areas of development, and even hurricanes are going to be more frequent in nature. If you want to learn a little bit more about all this tropics talk, Ansley Parker is preparing a breakout, so you can tune in at 5 and 6 on 13 WMAZ for a look at that, and she's going to break down where we are in hurricane season, how we compare to maybe years of past, and of course, when we typically see that first hurricane during a hurricane season, because we have yet to see one so far. We've just seen 3 named tropical storms. So here's a look at your 7-day forecast. I know I'm standing in front of the good day. You all are probably wanting to watch Sunday, but first things first, around average or slightly above average as we roll into the month of August on Friday. Decreasing rain chances from Tuesday all the way into Thursday, but then we'll see an uptick as we go back into Friday and all the way through your weekend. We have a general 40% chance of seeing some showers and thunderstorms right now as it does stand for the weekend ahead. I imagine we'll probably give that a bit of an uptick as we get closer and closer. We just can't really see the resolution on the high resolution models, those short range models. So once Friday pops up on our short-term future view, it will give us a lot better of an idea of what's in store on Saturday. But we can already get a pretty good idea because we see that downtick in the high temperature, 95 to 88 between Friday and Saturday. And why stop there? 83 degrees for a high temperature on Sunday. If we hit 83 on Sunday, just take a look at how much your forecast has changed. And this is definitely kind of feeling like 2 seasons. I know 83 is still definitely warm, but it is especially cool for the summertime months. That would be about 10 to 11 degrees below average for this time of year during the summertime months. Our average high right now has been nestled at about 94 degrees for about a week or two, but we hit 102 yesterday. We could see nearly a 20-degree temperature swing between the high temperature yesterday and the high temperature Sunday within a 6-day span. Nothing to complain about whatsoever, because I'm sure after yesterday you were asking, where's my relief? Where is some of that cooler weather? And yes, it may shape up to be a messy weekend forecast in terms of some rain that's lasting kind of all day and maybe into the nighttime hours. We'll have our occasional breaks here and there. But overall, 83 degrees for a high temperature. I'm sure that's going to be a welcome sight. It will be a pretty humid atmosphere, but the sun shouldn't be out too much in order to influence those feels like numbers. And then we're still hanging out well below average in the mid 80s for Monday as we go into next week. Again, I think all of these days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we'll get an uptick in the rain chances as we get closer. We're just trying to fine tune the details right now. The long range models are very vague, don't have the best resolution, so we're not really able to see the best in terms of coverage of this rain. So let's talk about your temperature outlook, which goes directly along with this potential temperature drop. This time frame is going to be August 2nd through the 6th. So that's going to start on Saturday, and I believe that's going to go into next Tuesday, if I'm correct. Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday, one of the two. But a good probability of seeing below normal temperatures, and it looks like we're not even just going to see below normal temperatures, we're going to be well above average. Definitely a 180 in the forecast. Other areas down to the south of us, like in Florida, over into Louisiana, over back into Texas, don't unfortunately have that same luxury, but it does look like that frontal boundary isn't going to necessarily push through those areas. I think it's going to be kind of a combination between a little bit of drier air, but more so some cooler air. And of course, the cloud cover and the rain is going to be the biggest influence in those below average temperatures in order to keep some of those numbers a lot cooler. And looking ahead, back to school actually got started today. Peach County students are already in the classroom, probably heading out to recess here very shortly. And we will continue to have a very busy week with back to school. Houston County going back tomorrow, and then Thursday and Friday, I believe probably about 2/3 of our Central Georgia school districts are going back to school, and we'll continue that into next week. I believe Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are back to school days for some counties, and then by the time we get to Thursday, everyone should be in class. Labor Day weekend, so if you're looking forward to that first 3-day weekend ahead during the school year, that's going to be on the very first day of September. That's also going to be the beginning of college football, so a lot of excitement around Labor Day weekend. And then the peak of hurricane season, that will be on September 10th. So like I was mentioning, typically when we go into August, we see an uptick in that tropical activity. The peak of hurricane season means that's when the frequency of tropical storms and hurricanes that are present in the Atlantic Basin, that is when it's going to be. It's going to be right there just past the 1st of September, and then after that we'll see a steady decrease in tropical activity. But just looking at years of past, Hurricane Helene, that occurred at the end of September. Hurricane Michael a couple years back, that occurred in the beginning of October. So definitely September is probably one of our more active months in terms of tropical activity, and then we can see that carry over into October, but it's not abnormal to start to get some strong storms forming as we go into the month of August. And then if this little break and this little relief in terms of these below average temperatures isn't good enough for your liking, well, first day of fall coming up at the end of September, September 22nd to be very exact. So we are less than 2 months away from the season of fall. There is relief in sight. Typically that first week or two of fall can be a little bit warm, but once we get into the end of the Georgia National Fair, that's when we finally look at some of those cooler temperatures to settle in. So there is a lot to look forward to. It's going to be a busy rest of the week, but thankfully we're not forecasting anything else in the way of actual triple-digit temperatures. Yesterday was definitely a very warm day. Hopefully we do without those for the rest of the summer season, and we can hover somewhere in the 90s and get a mix of 80s like we do see on your current 7-day forecast. So that will do it for your extended forecast this Tuesday. Be sure to tune back in tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for another look at what's ahead.